So you're all here today because when you saw this society that ripped children away from their parents, and 2,000 are still separated, and 30,000 people were rounded up last month with 10,000 families. This is striking you in your soul, but I'm not here to talk about all of that. Other people have told you this. What I want to tell you is this. In the call from Refuse Fascism, it says that the world as we have known it, the world as we have known it, is being torn asunder. This is the one thing that I can tell you with certainty, relatively speaking, but I can tell you with certainty that the world as you have known it is being torn asunder. The old order is, as Bob Dylan said, rapidly fading. This is important to understand why it is that we think that the only way to stop what is happening here is for people to start organizing now, the 50 to 100 to 200 of you who are here, to start organizing for the time when thousands can take to the streets and cities around this country and stay in the streets day after day, night after night, coming in shifts, coming from churches, coming from union halls, coming from your communities, coming from your schools, so that there is a political crisis in this country such that the powers that be are forced to remove this Trump-Pence regime. I said that the world is being torn asunder. All across the world, right now, populist fascist movements are growing. And in the imperialist countries in Europe and the United States, these are infused with white nationalism. And this is fascism. This is serious stuff. And right here, why does it matter so much in the United States? Because the United States is at the apex of all of this. And it is a country founded on genocide and white supremacy. And the party of Donald Trump is the party and the continuation of the Confederacy. And you only had to watch the rally in Fargo, North Dakota, or the one in Minnesota, to understand that there is a force that's being unleashed in this country that is prepared to fight to totally remake this country in a fascist direction, and they've already made great progress in the first 14 months. I'm trying to speak seriously to you. This is not, when we say we refuse fascism in the name of humanity, we refuse to accept a fascist America, that is not a hyperbolic rhetorical slogan. That is the reality that is happening. This is not exaggeration. This is what's happening. And the question to all of you is, if it hasn't hit you yet, does that mean that you will go along with it? Because this has been historically tested, and people who went along with fascism paid a very serious price. And let me ask you this. Many of you, who here has heard the quote from Pastor Martin Niemöller? Okay. First they came for the communists and I was not a communist and I didn't speak up, and then they came for the trade unionists and I was not a trade unionist and I didn't speak up, and then they came for the Jews and I did not speak up till there was no one left, and he was speaking about Nazi Germany. Well, first they came for whom? The Muslims. And now that's law, passed by the Supreme Court even before this new appointment. Then they came for the immigrants. If you are not outraged enough now to act, you are going to be accepting a future that is horrific. So now is the time. Now is the time. Starting today, tomorrow morning at the churches, Monday night vigils around the country around the Supreme Court decision, and then going from there to the point when we can get tens of thousands in the street. We have to recognize that this fascist regime is not something that's incidental. It's not just a clown sneaking his way into the presidency. This is something that has been growing in this country for a long time, for decades, in fact, if not since its foundation. Now, I'm, as Eva announced, I'm the spokesperson for Revolution Books, and I'm going to tell you that this sign over here that the sister is carrying that says America was never great, we need to overthrow this system, is a truth that I believe in, and I think if you want to learn more about that, you can see people with t-shirts about this. You can come up to Revolution Books and we can talk about why it is going to take an actual revolution ultimately to end a system that gives rise to fascism. So that's what I believe. But I also believe that whatever future you want of justice, that we have to come together now in this course of action. And there are people telling you every night they are telling you that what you need to do is vote in November. Well, first of all, on their own logic, that is not going to prevent the consolidation of a fascist court, and the evisceration of the separation of powers is one step in the fascist direction. That is not going to deal with these unleashed fascist mobs that you saw in North Dakota the other night. Trump only had to say the words and those people would have poured out of that stadium and done mayhem. But what about us? You're watching fucking Rachel Maddow tell you every night about some investigation. That's not going to do anything if you're not in the streets.
That's right.
It's not going to do anything. You got to wake up, friends. You may not want to hear this, but that's not going to do a damn thing if there isn't the pressure from below. Oh yeah, Manafort will go to jail. So what? The regime will still be in power. I'm trying to speak to you seriously about this. The Democrats are not going to be your answer. And here's something from the revolutionary leader, Bob Avakian. If you try to make the Democrats what they are not, you will become more like what they actually are. And this is tested. This is tested. This is a party that has waged war. They criticized Trump in going to North Korea for not being hard enough on North Korea when the man's threatening to incinerate the world with nuclear weapons. These are people who will sand the roughest edges in their rhetoric about this system. They are not going to stand up to Trump. You've given them 16 months. Do not give them another 4 months. And I'm not telling you not to vote. You do what you want, but I'm telling you that's not going to solve this. The only thing that's going to stop this is people getting out in the streets. And those of us who are revolutionaries, we're going to be there with you. Those of you who believe in this system and want to make this system live up to the ideals you think it has, you need to be in the streets. If you rely on these political processes, you haven't been listening, because Donald Trump and this fascist Republican Party, they are not relying on how things have been done. They are breaking all the norms, they are breaking all the rules, and they're going to break it until they can build something different, and that is not a world that you want to live in. But let me say one last thing. As much as I care deeply about people who are standing here and people in this country, I care much more about all of humanity. And that's who's coming across the border here. That's who's in what he called shithole countries in Africa that have been despoiled and destroyed by U.S. imperialism in the Mideast. And that's why we say, in the name of humanity, we refuse to accept a fascist America. And that's why we say that this nightmare must end. The Trump-Pence regime must go. But that's on all of us. So I want to see you signing up today with Refuse Fascism and figuring out how many days a week you can take off to become organizers. Because this is serious business, and we can do this. As Brother Travis said, just 2 months ago, the people of Armenia surprised themselves in the world when they drove out a president by being in their capital night after night, day after day, and the president resigned. 2 years ago, they did the same thing in Seoul, South Korea. 5 years ago, it was the Arab Spring. What we're proposing is not outrageous. It's been done everywhere else in the world but here. And here's where it needs to be done most of all. So thank you very much.